G'day everybody, my name is Lowell and welcome to the channel. Now, we have a reaction video. Probably not going to be down everybody's street, that is for sure. Somebody who worked in mental health for over a decade, I thought this would be interesting. So let's do the top 10 horrifying mental asylums in the United States. Now, as I said, this isn't going to be for everybody. So let's jump in. Let's have a look at this one.
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching Top 10's Net, and in the video today, we're looking at the top 10 horror.
I think this guy does about 27 YouTube channels. He's everywhere. Everywhere.
Horrifying mental asylums.
Okay. Let's have a look at
Number
this.
10, Topeka State Hospital. Where? Topeka, Kansas. Years of operation from 1872 to 1997. It's hard to come to grips with the medical justification for castration, but somehow the practitioners at Topeka State Hospital found the practice suitable. After Kansas law saw it fit to administer castrations for habitual criminals, idiots, epileptics, imbeciles, and the insane.
Oh my God. What? We're already starting with this? Imagine being epileptic going there and going, whoosh. Like, oh my God.
In 1931, Topeka State Hospital went on to perform 54 castrations. If castrations were not enough to frighten you, accounts detail stories of a patient who had been strapped down so long that his skin began to grow over the straps. In addition,
oh, that's terrible. That is terrible. Oh, I'm so glad we know more about mental health than we did in those days. As I said, I worked in mental health for over a decade, so I've seen some questionable things, but not where your skin has grown over straps. That's, oh.
Patients were victims of rape and other forms of abuse. What makes the abuse of patients at this hospital so disconcerting is that it was later revealed that many of the identities and illnesses of the patients were unknown, with the hospital lacking any proper paperwork for them to be committed.
Oh my God.
Somehow, the Topeka State Hospital remained open until 1997. Number 9, Waverly.
Wait, so they didn't even have proper paperwork. Oh yeah, we think he's got this. Just throw him in there. Don't worry about him. Oh my God.
Hill Sanatorium. Where? Louisville, Kentucky. Years of operation, 1910 to 1961. The Waverly Hill Sanatorium is another case that demonstrates man's willingness to experiment on his fellow man with little regard or concern for his well-being. While not
that looks like an asylum. The other one just looked like a big house. It kind of looked like a creepy house. But this one looks like an asylum. Look at it.
Exactly deemed a mental asylum, the Kentucky hospital housed tuberculosis patients during an era of medical uncertainty on the subject. Without a prevailing paradigm for medical treatment of tuberculosis, doctors resorted to barbaric methods. Cases of doctors removing ribs and muscles and even having inserted balloons into the lungs to help them expand more are well documented. The death rate at Waverly Hill Sanatorium has come under fire, with independent researchers and medical personnel at the sanatorium claiming different figures. According to Assistant Medical Director Dr. J. Frank W. Stewart, the highest number of deaths in a single year at Waverly Hills was 152. Independent research.
Oh my God, 152.
Researchers have argued that the number is closer to 162 and have extrapolated that over the 50 years Waverly Hills Sanatorium was open, approximately 8,212 people died in.
I mean, if you have one person die in your aged care and everything I used to work in, you know, there's a lot of questions. If you have 8,000,
their care. Number 8, Overbrook Insane Asylum. Where? Cedar Grove, New Jersey. Years of operation, 1896 to 1975.
Another long one.
Operations began in 1896, with Essex County officials designating 325 acres of land as the new location of the county asylum for the mentally ill. Specifically chosen for its scenic view, officials believed its remote location and high-altitude location would provide a healthy, peaceful setting for patients to rehabilitate in. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Soon after opening, the patient-to-staff ratio became unbalanced, leaving too many patients in need of care that they weren't getting from the overworked staff. The results were frightening. Conditions were so bad that 24 patients froze to death in their own beds in the early 20th century, while more than 150 patients went missing and were never found.
What just went missing? Just went missing. Probably in the bush somewhere. Who knows? Oh, imagine getting that. Well, I was going to say telephone, but obviously it won't be. That message that, oh, by the way, your loved one has frozen to death in their bed. Good God.
Despite all of this, Overbrook remained open for nearly a century, eventually closing in the 1970s. Number 7, Willowbrook State School. Where? Staten Island, New York. Years of operation, 1947 to 1987. One of the most important cases on our list is the Willowbrook State School, a state-sponsored institution for children who were intellectually disabled that became the catalyst for reform of mental health institutions. Things were so bad at Willowbrook that during the 1960s, Robert Kennedy referred to it as zoo-like and a snake pit. Initially designed...
It's kind of off-putting. All our schools in Australia are called state schools if it's run by the government. So to see something that says state school, it kind of... My brain's not getting around it.
Dang. For 4,000 children, by 1965, Willowbrook contained a population of 6,000 people. First-hand accounts claimed that patients were left to wander around the facility covered in their own urine and feces. However, what's more troubling is the experiments that the doctors carried out on the very children they were supposed to care for. Struggling to find answers about the outbreak of hepatitis, medical researcher Saul Krugman used the children of Willowbrook to answer those questions. One of his studies...
Children! Good God, come on! It's bloody children.
Studies involved feeding the live hepatitis virus to 60 healthy children, according to researcher and author Paul Offit. Krugman watched as their skin and eyes turned yellow and their livers got bigger. He watched them vomit and refused to eat. All the children fed hepatitis virus became ill, some severely. Krugman reasoned that it was justifiable to inoculate retarded children at Willowbrook with hepatitis virus because most of them would get hepatitis anyway. But by purposefully giving the children hepatitis, Krugman increased that chance to 100%.
Oh, come on.
The great horrors of Willowbrook led to the passage of a federal law, the Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act of 1980.
Good.
Number 6.
As it bloody should. Should have been in there before. Oh, those poor kids.
Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Where? Weston, West Virginia. Years of operation, 1864 to 1994.
God, another long one.
An amalgamation of many of our other cases, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum had it all. Built to house only 250 patients, by 1949 the hospital had over 2,400 people in its care. A 1938 report by a survey committee organized by a group of North American medical organizations found that the hospital housed epileptics, alcoholics, drug addicts, and non-educable mental defectives among its population. Those they were not able to control were locked in cages, with others even being lobotomized with rudimentary instruments such as ice picks. All in all, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum's horrible treatment of patients undoubtedly contributed to the tens of thousands of lives the asylum claimed during its surprisingly long years of operation. Number 5.
Hang on. Did that just say tens of thousands? Oh my God. Oh my God.
5. Byberry Mental Hospital. Where? Byberry, Pennsylvania. Years of operation, 1907 to 1987. Civil disobedience seems to have gotten a bad reputation in our current political climate, but it's certainly effective. When Charlie Lord, a conscientious objector, was assigned to duty at the hospital, he took 36 black and white photographs, which was enough for them to shut down Byberry Mental Hospital. The photos led to mass outrage, with even First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt pledging her support to combat the issue. Other reformers compared the conditions to Nazi concentration camps and described...
That's what I was just thinking. That is horrific.
The overcrowded conditions where patients were sleeping in their own feces and urine. Multiple first-hand accounts describe the overwhelming filth of the facility and the patient's ability to roam.
Why the hell has everybody got no clothes? What is that?
The facility naked. Lord's images of the inhumane conditions were published in a 1946 issue of Life magazine and sparked widespread reforms of mental health facilities. With public pressure growing, the facility was forced to downsize and eventually close its doors. Number 4.
Downsize? It should have been closed straight away. That's it. See you later. Thanks for coming.
Bloomingdale Insane Asylum. Where? Morningside Heights, New York City. Years of operation, 1821 to 1880.
Oh my God.
Established in 1821, the Bloomingdale Insane Asylum was formed with the intention of morally rehabilitating mentally ill patients. However, the hospital's practices strayed greatly from its moral principles. Journalist Julius Chambers managed to expose its revolting practices in 1872 by taking extraordinary measures. With the help of a senior editor of the New York Tribune, Chambers managed to have himself committed to the asylum for 10 days. After exiting the the institution, he published a story detailing the inhuman practices at the asylum, including patients who were kicked and choked until they bled, and in some cases driven to suicide by systematic cruelties.
Imagine if you didn't have people like, you know, this journalist who went in and exposed them and everything else. They would have just kept on going. Oh,
the result of his muckraking, the Bloomingdale Insane Asylum was forced to release 12 patients at the facility who were not mentally ill. In addition, Chambers' subsequent book, A Mad World and Its People, led to reform for the rights of the mentally ill. Number 3. Pilgrim Psychiatric Center. Where? Brentwood, New York. Years of operation, 1941 to present.
God, it's still going?
In the case of Pilgrim Psychiatric Center, the gross misconduct of a single patient is more telling than the rampant abuse of its populace. In the 1940s, Beluga Jones,
look at the building. Oh my God.
Was taken to Pilgrim Psychiatric Center, at the time the largest hospital/asylum in the world. Beluga was admitted by her husband after her pregnancy with her last child resulted in psychosis. Family members state that her husband consented to the leucotomy only because doctors said it would work. It was the only alternative. There, Beluga Jones had 15 rounds of electroshock over 10 weeks, despite her delusions continuing. Later, a lobotomy was performed where doctors drilled holes into her brain and swiped at the frontal lobes. Beluga Jones's story led Christine Johnson, her granddaughter, to pore over her file and demand answers on the use of the medical practices and why a Nobel Peace Prize would be awarded to a man that legitimized lobotomy and made it into a public practice. After spending decades in the facility, in 1972, Beluga Jones was released. Somehow, Pilgrim Psychiatric Center is still open today. Number 2.
Why is that still open? That looked horrific, that building. That building is enough to drive you insane. Crazy.
Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital. Where? Morris Plains, New Jersey. Years of operation, 1876
still
to
going.
present.
From 1876. Oh my God, you can imagine the culture.
Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital
Holy
does not differ greatly from many of the other wards.
Oh, I think I've seen this movie. That looks frightening. Oh.
On this list. It was guilty of overpopulation, squeezing 2,412 patients in a space meant to hold no more than 1,600. Additionally, Greystone administered insulin shock therapy, electroconvulsive therapy on veterans suffering from PTSD. However, what makes Greystone unique is that it housed one of the legends of folk music, Woody Guthrie. Guthrie had a stint at Greystone from 1956 to 1961. He was suffering from Huntington's disease, a hereditary, degenerative nervous disorder, which would eventually prove terminal. During his stay there, Woody referred to Greystone as Gravestone. Guthrie wrote hundreds of letters from Wardy 40, the nickname of his hospital wing, which just goes to show that patients who are diagnosed with mental illness still need the human contact and interaction that we all do. Number 1. Penhurst Insane Asylum. Where? Spring City, Pennsylvania. Years of operation, 1908 to 1907. While abuse to any patient is reprehensible, Penhurst Insane Asylum's treatment of children puts it in a league of its own.
Not children again. Oh my God, please no.
Built to educate and care for the mentally disabled, Penhurst soon came to be identified for just the opposite. As a result of investigative reporter Bill Baldini in 1968, the public learned of the horrible conditions in the asylum. The news report, titled Suffer the Little Children, showed neglected children's screams filling the air, large-scale physical and sexual abuse, and a general lack of empathy towards patients. The report also revealed that children who bit one another got a warning, with a second warning leading to a child's teeth being pulled out.
God. Come on. Come on. Jesus.
For a second report by former resident Terry Lee Haldeman, the courts found that over 3,000 of the institution's patients were not receiving adequate care, and the institution was closed.
So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit.
I tell you what, that is horrific. You know, you always hear about these, you know, asylums, and especially the ones from, you know, the 19th century. The ones in Great Britain are no different. But when it comes to kids as well, it's just like, oh, come on. Come on. So glad that the thinking about mental health and everything else, and, you know, especially when you had, like, unwed mothers and stuff ending up in asylums as well. I'm so glad our thinking, and it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There is still a lot of stigma around mental health. but I'm glad it's much, much better than it was in the 1800s, 1900s. That is 100% sure. But man, when you hear about people being strapped down so long, their skin is growing over the straps, that is horrific. Horrific. You know, kids getting their teeth pulled out because they're biting people. It's just horrific. Just horrific. So, that was an interesting video. Heartbreaking for sure. Definitely heartbreaking. But as I said, if it wasn't for people who were exposing these atrocities, they would just be going on behind closed doors and still be going on, you know. So thank God for them, and thank God some of those ones are still open today. So I just hope that they're all getting the treatment that they need for sure. Oh, that was heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. So let me know what you thought of that. Thank you very much for joining me today. Make sure you stay safe. I'll definitely see you in the next reaction video. Oh, you're still here? You want more content? Why don't you check out my Patreon down here? You'll get plenty more content and some exclusive videos over there too. If not, why not check out this one over here?